Um, I belong to the Lama Lama, Ayapathu and Kuku Yalanji people of Cape York Peninsula, and I've been living and working here on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong Bunurong peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation since 2008. So it's been a long way from home, but I've found my place here as my newfound home and where I get to live, learn and raise my children and create a life with my family down here. I grew up in a small country town in the eastern part of Cape York Peninsula, and it was very remote. So I did most of my primary school years there and then went away to secondary school, but I always had opportunities in my community to learn traditional dance. After I completed my secondary studies, there was an opportunity to join or audition for NAISDA Dance College, which stands for the National Aboriginal and Islander Skills Development Association, NAISDA Dance College in Sydney. I did a 2-week audition in Sydney and then the following year joined to complete a certificate and a diploma of dance. So I did all my training as a late learner in dance, in contemporary dance at NAISDA in Sydney. From there, after graduating, I went on and joined Bangarra Dance Theatre. And it was a company that I always wanted to get into, and I spent 4 years with the company. So it's been an interesting journey through dance. And the unique thing about NAISDA and what they offer is that I didn't have the opportunity to learn Western dance techniques in my home community, and that was offered at NAISDA. So I got to train in jazz, ballet, modern, tap, and different dance forms at NAISDA, as well as traditional Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. And that's the core component of NAISDA's curriculum. It was at NAISDA where I really learned how to work with many different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community and nations, and part of the program was that elders would come down from various communities, teach us their songs and dances, and then through that experience we'd then go back to their communities, whether it was an Aboriginal community or a Torres Strait Islander community, and we got to present it back to the community, the knowledge and culture that we learned at NAISDA at that time. So I really credit NAISDA for giving me the foundation of how to now negotiate the complexities of cultural knowledge within a contemporary dance space. After completing NAISDA, I actually, as a student of NAISDA, I had the opportunity to have a small performing opportunity with Bangarra through the Sydney Olympics opening and closing ceremony as a volunteer at NAISDA, and I got to do the awakening segment and then the closing segment with Christine Anu, Island Home. And so that was like an introductory to how Bangarra worked. And then after completing NAISDA, I put an expression of interest to the artistic director at the time and was given a 6-week secondment with the company, and then in 2003 was offered full-time employment. And I was with the company for 4 years at that time. I got to work under the direction of then artistic director Stephen Page, choreographer Francis Rings, and cultural knowledge holder Jakapura Manyaran, and as well as the other company members. I was with the company for 4 years. I toured regional, metropolitan, and I also went on national and international tours. So that was a wonderful experience. I got to perform in Hawaii, 3 islands in Hawaii, perform at the Kennedy Centre in Washington, New York, London. It was a really exciting time and lots of the great opportunity to perform stories from this place, this island, Australia, and to take that internationally and to tell our stories in the way that we do through dance. So after my time with Bangarra, I became an independent artist, and that was quite a challenging time because through NAISDA and Bangarra you learn a particular way of moving and telling your stories, and then as an independent artist you really have to interrogate what is your choreographic style, or what is your way of telling stories. And so it took me a long time to really unlearn particularly Bangarra's dance technique and their way of storytelling in order to find my own. So I did a lot of, in Victoria, I did a lot of teaching back at students with and without dance training, and I think it was through there that I really got a taste of how to really articulate what my practice was going to be or how it was going to be developed. So it was through going back to community, going back and working with just non-dance trained bodies to be really able to see how the body moves with the instructions and how can we respond to certain elements that that is part of our cultural identity. So and out of that, you know, I started getting an interest in studying. I also became a mother during that time of transitioning from professional dancer to then an independent artist, and it was through the Wilin Centre for Indigenous Arts and Cultural Development here at the South Bank campus, Victorian College of the Arts, that and through the graduate certificate in Indigenous Arts and Culture, that I was able to work through the different elements of my dance artistry. So yeah, it was that was a 6-month block study. I completed that, and that sort of gave me the tools, also the art administration tools, to support my independent dance identity. So for you know, over the years, I did a lot of community work, worked at certain festivals with different community organisations here, and elders and other artists from here. So one of the sort of other great opportunities for being an independent artist, I got to work with Short Black Opera on their work Pecan Summer, which is a collection of First Nation artists, classical singers coming together to tell a story about Yora Yora people. And so I was invited by the artistic director, Professor Deborah Cheatham, and I got to be part of an opera, not as an opera singer, but as a dancer to support that production. So that was exciting. And yeah, so there's many different elders from various communities that invited me to work within their community, and that has been both a privilege and a great opportunity to find and to tell my story at the same time. And that sort of having children and still wanting to be part of the dance community, that was a hard sort of space to navigate, and I found, you know, studying a Master of Fine Arts Dance by research enabled me to be a full-time mum, but also I got to explore what my dance practice is. And my research question at the time was, how does my cultural identity inform my dance practice? So there was a real deep investigation of my 3 cultural identities and the intersection of where my dance training and practice came into it. So I spent 2 years exploring that and completed a Master of Fine Arts in Dance by Research here at the Victorian College of the Arts, and my thesis is titled Aboriginal Contemporary Dance Practice Embodying Our Ways of Knowing, Being and Doing through Dance Storying. Almost forgot that. Absolutely. I think by research, it gave me time and space to really look deeply into even our interpretation or a connection with the English language. And I found storytelling just didn't sort of give the fluidity or the depth of intimacy that we as First Nation people have with our country and the elements that make up country for us, whether it's land, sea, waterways, or sky. And so the word that I used was dance storying, and that was like more circular, as in, there's more ways in which that I could tell my story, and it didn't feel linear. And I feel like sometimes using the word storytelling, it's very one direction and very speaking at, not with. And so with the words dance storying, that became how I felt my embodied knowledge and how I create and how I make was more aligned with that. So in my thesis, you would have saw that, well, there is a section there that I spoke to about old ways for new ceremonies, and that is a framework that I developed based on my knowledge and experience of looking at cultural knowledge and looking at traditional Aboriginal dance and the dance that I grew up learning from the old people, how do I place that cultural knowledge? How do I negotiate that cultural knowledge within a contemporary dance framework? And what are the negotiations that need to occur or happen? And for example, like I always use, is it my story to tell? And if it's not my story, well, that's a starter point. Like if it's not your story, then what right do I have in telling that story? So, and that's what I think is important about dance making, choreographing, is you really need to take time to research and take time to really listen to what the stories need to be told through my embodied knowledge. And so yeah, I look at whether the information that I'm about to share is it supposed to be for private or public settings. Again, whose story is it? Is it my hereditary privilege to be accessing that information and then claiming it as my own? So really, there's a very deep, sensitive process that I go through in creating works. And then, using the contemporary dance framework, I can then create an abstract interpretation of my connection with place, without having to cross over into knowledge that's not really accessible or knowledge that's not mine. So the contemporary dance framework I use is very, it's something that I'm still working on, how I how I embed Indigenous knowledges into that particular way of choreographing and sharing of stories. But it's and I learned that process when I was at NAISDA, and I learned that through Bangarra, and I've just found my way of telling my story. But it was through those two art organisations and college that I feel I'm now in a position to create and develop my way of telling story through where I am now, which is at the university. So here, I've been here at the Victorian College of the Arts as a lecturer in dance for the past 3 years. My specialisation is Indigenous pedagogy and practice. I teach into the Master of Dance coursework. A subject that I developed is body, time, space and place, and that looks at over the course of the semester, that really looks at individuals who are enrolled in the subject to look at or to interrogate their personal and cultural identity as an inroad to their knowingness. And so I feel like I facilitate rather than lecture in that subject, to facilitate how do they safely explore what their dance expression is going to be. And I also introduce cultural knowledge. We look at the historical, cultural, political, and social events that have shaped the place that we perform. So we really look at, it's a very 360 perspective on dance from an Indigenous worldview. And yeah, we work through how do artists or students enrolled in that subject, how do they find their way of telling the stories that's not only safe for themselves, but safe for others, and they're not, yeah, they're taking the time to find what their practice is about. So I'm not yet enrolled in a PhD, but it's something that's I've been thinking about. Yeah, I think there's a part, sort of a journey or a thread that's come through my master's that I feel like I could, develop or build upon. So yeah, it is in the immediate future. So I'm looking at either the year in the next year, 12 months or 24 months. So I'm about to see what my options are, but it will be in dance. It'll be about cultural revitalization, education and healing. And so how that comes together in a PhD, I don't know yet, but that's how they're my areas of interest. Yeah, so I work between VCA dance for 3 days and then 1 day at the Wilin Centre for Indigenous Arts and Cultural Development. And yeah, I don't feel they're two different roles. I get to speak about Indigenous dance pedagogy and practice in both of those spaces. I'm also, part of my role here in Leadership and Services is I mentor the First Nations students that are here in the undergrad and the Master of Dance course. So there's also that connection I have with the students, and also at the Wilin Centre, I'm a lecturer in the subject Stories of Place, which is a core component of the Victorian College of the Arts first year students studying a BFA here. And that's a subject that really explores stories of place from an Indigenous perspective and from from the First Nation peoples of this place. So, and that's a subject through the Wilin Centre that I get to be part of. And that's for one whole semester. So every student in the Bachelor of Fine Arts in their first year will complete this subject in order to continue their studies here at VCA. I think, often I come to work and I think, how amazing is this? I get to be in a dance studio or get to be with colleagues who have come across the world. And, at dance, we get to speak dance, we get to speak about dance making. It's conversations about dance all day, every day here. And so there's always this really vibrant, exciting time. And also sharing, like sharing is a big part of embedding Indigenous knowledges into the curriculum, but doing it in a way that I feel culturally safe, but also for those who are learning from Indigenous dance practitioners and educators, is that what can be, you know, retransmitted or reproduced, or being able to set those boundaries up as well through a pedagogical framework. So there's lots of sharing, but in a safe space. And most of my dance workshops, or when I go into teaching into the other modules here at Victorian College of the Arts, is that I get to take the students also outside, and we go to the Wilin Gardens and we really explore how it feels to like take off your shoes and connect with the grounds. And when we do connect with the grounds, that space between our feet and the earth, how do we acknowledge country in a way where it's embodied and it feels deep, like it's respectful and meaningful. So really working outside the parameters of dancing within a traditional white dance space, taking students out and really connecting and responding to the environment is a core part of my teaching. Absolutely. So here at BCA Dance, there's an opportunity each year to develop and deliver different subjects within the Bachelor of Fine Arts, and also in the Masters I just teach into the body, time, space and place. But over the years I had the opportunity to learn and develop the other subjects here. So this year, recently, I took a group of students over to Indonesia. So we went to Java, Surakarta, Solar City, and we got to work with a Performing Arts Institute, EC, in Indonesia. And we spent 2 weeks where students from BCA Dance, through the Global Italia Travelling Studio subject, they got to spend time with another institute and learn traditional Javanese dance, and then it gave our students the opportunity to develop their pedagogy and teach the students in Indonesia. And then over that 2-week period or week and a half we had there, myself and another educator from EC College, we got to choreograph and collaborate on our student work. And so that was really exciting, working with a dance educator in Indonesia, coming together and both sharing different experiences and knowledges of dance, and both working together to merge our choreographic practices together. And it was really good to to work with, to have that opportunity available, but also to see how students are now learning to develop their network and their dance community, not just here in Australia, but elsewhere as well. So that was really exciting. And also through the Master of Dance coursework, the subject that I teach into, we, in the first year, so it was the inaugural Master of Dance group, we got to go to Yora Yora country on the Dookie campus and spent a 1-week dance intensive there. And so that was a really exciting moment too, to see how students learn and respond to different Aboriginal nations, and hopefully through the subjects that they take here at VCA, that they get to learn how to approach and the right way in going and approaching community or dancing on country. Absolutely. I think I'm going to forever be developing and understanding what my practice is. I think there's also factors, political factors, social factors that will also influence the direction of where my practice will go. So yeah, I think it'll be the PhD, which will be sort of a next the where I'll allocate my time and energy to find a topic that I'm going to be interested in, and yes, I feel like the university, through their as an academic, researching is always going to be part of how I create and make work, and how that will keep evolving my dance practice here and wherever it takes me. For me, it's about creating opportunities. It's about really encouraging independent dance artists, First Nation dance artists, to consider coming through the academy and studying, and seeing how the academy can also support their dance practice. And because it's worked for me, and yeah, so there's being able to create pathways for First Nation dance artists to come through, study, and then to share and develop them as dance researchers going forward. Yeah, I find this is, I'm still grappling with the idea of on country, off country. I think for me, I am part of country, whether I'm physically there or not. The way I speak, who I am, the way I move, my characteristics, all of me is part of country, whether I'm physically on the lands of my Lama Lama, Ayapathu and Kuku Yalanji ancestry, or whether I'm on the other side of the world. So I feel I carry country in the way in which I embody and experience the world. The difference is, although I say, in saying all of that, and I know that I'm not on the lands that is my that I am away from home physically, it means that I'm just not a traditional custodian of the place where I am right now. So the on-country, off-country question is always interesting. I think I would understand it, or how I answer that is, I'm just not a traditional custodian of the place where I meet today. I think being a dancer and a choreographer, every day I get to play and make up stories, and I get to have fun. So I think often we overthink. As we get older, we overthink, and that blocks our creativity. So I always get students of all different ages to first play and remember to play in creating dance, and to find joy in that. And through that joy, I then set a task. I give the students a word, and it could be tree, it could be rock, it could be waves. So I use words or elements in our surroundings that's relevant to the students and that they can connect with. And then through that, we workshop different ideas. So we look at different layers, we look at different heights, we look at different shapes that each of those different tasks that I set make or they look like. So I try to include, or in that moment of interaction with young people, whether it's an introductory to dance or they've had previous experience and opportunities to learn dance, I get them to take away skills for them to then create and make and become future choreographers, where they can just use small little tools around them to build and to tell their story. So, and I do that as well with the students I teach in the master's level. It's just giving them the tools and the skills to find their way of connecting to their surroundings, and what is their relationship to certain elements within the environment. So it's very similar. It's just I work at a different pace, and I use different languages to bring out the different ideas that I need the students to share. What I try to bring is ideas, or again, using elements around for them to find their connection, but I will share a story of how I'm connected with that particular element, or so I do share what my story is and how I'm connected with that particular idea, and then I then ask the students to then find their connection, and it's through that connection that I guide them through embedding cultural knowledge, or bringing knowledge that's specific to their family and tradition. So I find that it's a two-way relationship in choreographing and developing content with young students. I think we're very slow in picking this up, but a founding member of Bangarra Dance Theatre and my former teacher at Naystar Dance College, Monica Stevens, started researching and completed a master's in digital technology and dance. I feel like digital technology is a fantastic media for our mob to tell our stories through dance. So it's really exciting to see where and how having access to digital technology, where we can take our dance practice to, whether it's here in Australia or in different parts of the world where they're very innovative with digital technology.